Hello students, today we will be discussing the topic separation of Unit 3 Human Resource Management, a course of AKTU University. So myself Dr. Vibhuti. Now let us start with what is separation. A separation is a step which is ahead of demotion, which we have already discussed in our last presentation. It involves cessation of services of personnel from an organization. It is a contractual relationship which comes to an end. If a person retires, it is also a type of separation. However, separation is also possible before the expiry of the period of contract. In case of layoff, retrenchment, discharge or voluntary retirement, separation takes place, but it is at the initiative of the employer or the management. Separations are common in case of loss-making ventures and sick industrial units. Even inadequate market demand leads to downsizing of production activities and corresponding separations of employees. The different ways in which separation takes place are layoff, where there is temporary separation under specific circumstances; retrenchment, which is a sort of permanent separation by an employer with due notice as per statutory provisions. The employee is also paid compensation. Even the compensation is being paid in layoff. Then the third way of separation is discharge or dismissal, which is permanent separation of an employee from the organization for violation of organizational rules. Normally, this discharge or dismissal takes place when a person creates an indiscipline, or he is dishonest, he is careless. Many times he can be found drunk or is absent from his duties without informing. So these are certain ways in which discharge or dismissal takes place. The next way of separation is voluntary retirement, in which an employer offers attractive package of compensation to those who are willing for separation on voluntary basis. Such retirement leads to permanent separation from the job. Now let us discuss all these ways of separation in detail. Layoff. Now the word this layoff or this type of separation is also discussed under the Industrial Dispute Act 1947, where it is the failure or refusal or inability of an employer to give employment to a workman on account of, that means there are certain reasons. Now these are the reasons where the separation of employee takes place, and we call it as a layoff. Now these reasons are when there is a shortage of coal, power or raw materials, and because of which the production does not continue. There is accumulation of stocks, and because of this again production will not take place. There is a breakdown of machinery, again the company or the organization or the manufacturing unit will not be able to work. Now when we go for layoff, these are the perquisites which should be there. The name of the person or workman's name must be borne on must rolls of the establishment. The worker is in continuous service for not less than 1 year. That means he has worked for 240 days during that year, and then only he is entitled for layoff compensation. The compensation which is being given when a person is being laid off, this is the laid off workman is eligible for compensation under section 25C of ID Act. ID Act means Industrial Dispute Act 1947, if he meets the eligibility criteria. Now eligibility conditions are those which we have already discussed in the last slide. The rate of compensation which is given under laid off conditions is 50% of basic wages plus DA for all days during which he is laid off, except for such weekly holidays as may intervene. So in case there are weekly holidays, they are being excluded. So for example, a person is being laid off for 2 months. In that case, he will get a salary of 1 month, that is 50% of 1 month and 50% of next month. Certain cases where workman is not entitled to compensation are also there, but we will not discuss them here because they are a part of Industrial Dispute Act 1947. The next way by which a separation takes place is retrenchment. Now this retrenchment is the termination of the workman's services. Again, we are not terminating a workman, we are terminating his services for any reason whatsoever. However, this does not include the following. So these are the reasons which are not considered for retrenchment. Punishment by way of disciplinary action, we have already said, if we give a punishment by disciplinary action, we call it as discharge or dismissal. There is voluntary retirement, again is not a part of retrenchment. If a person gets retired at the age of superannuation, if the contract of employment contains provision in that behalf, again we don't call it as retrenchment. Termination on ground of continued ill health is not a part of retrenchment. Now all these are the reasons which are not included in retrenchment, and therefore the person does not get the compensation as per retrenchment, which is the reason. These are certain reasons why retrenchment takes place. One is uncompetitive cost structure. That means the cost structure which we are having is not in line with the competitors. Inadequate returns on investment. That means we are investing more, we don't get a returns in the same manner, and therefore we are not able to have the profit. So we were not able to have number of employees, and therefore there is a need to reduce the employees. Poor competitive position. Our competitors are they are more competitive as compared to what we are. Financial distress. For example, our company is in high debt. So in that case, we are not able to give the payment to the employees. So we will reduce the number of employees. Market decline. That means the product which we were manufacturing or the services which we were giving, they are not in a very good position or in a very good condition in the market, and therefore we will have to reduce the number of employees. Then failed takeovers. Failed takeovers means a company has been there was a takeover, but the takeover does not work for a longer period of time, therefore there is a need to reduce the number of employees. Economic downturn is there. We have a very good example. In the last few years we had an IT company. There was economic downturn, and therefore there was a retrenchment. Then there is a change in ownership. Now when we say change in ownership, means the company has been either acquired, or it has been merged, or there has been a takeover, and because of that the owner of the company has changed. Now it is on the wish of the owner that whether they wish to have the same employees, or they wish to reduce the number of employees, or they wish to have the new employees. So in that case also retrenchment will take place. Then let us see what is the compensation which is given for retrenchment. It is 15 days of the average pay of every completed year of service. Now when I say completed year of service, it means the worker should have worked for 24 days during that year. Now if this is the condition, in that case if a person has worked for 10 years, so we will give 15 days for every year. That means altogether we will give a salary of 150 days. But at the same time there is a part which says any part thereof in excess of 6 months. So at the same time we will see the 6 month salary also. So out of these 150 days and 6 months, whichever is excess will be given as a compensation for retrenchment. The retrenchment workman is also entitled for re-employment. So again this says that if a workman has been retrenched, it does not mean that he cannot be re-employed. So whenever required, if you think that you require a person, he can be re-employed. Next way of separation is voluntary retirement scheme. We call it as a golden handshake scheme also, because both the hands, that means the employer and the employee, they are in profit, they are in benefit, therefore we call it as a golden handshake. Now this voluntary separation of an employee completing criteria. So when I say criteria, it does not mean this is a specific criteria. There are many companies who have different criteria, but presently the criteria which is being prevailing is the employee's age should be 40 years and he should have serviced for at least 10 years. Now when we go for voluntary retirement scheme, the company has to take a prior permission of government before offering golden handshake. The management has a right to accept or reject the application of VRS. So in case a company has a VRS, that means voluntary retirement scheme, it can be from either side. That means a management or the employer can ask a person to go for voluntary retirement, or at the same time an employee can put his application for voluntary retirement. Now let us see why there is a voluntary retirement. It is to reduce the burden of unproductive employees. Now, if an organization has unproductive employees, there are certain other methods which can be used. For example, we can terminate an employee, we can discharge an employee, we can dismiss an employee, but all these conditions, they create a negative atmosphere in an organization. But when we go for voluntary retirement scheme, it is always a positive vibes which are being created in the organization, because in this the employee and the employer both are benefited. Then downsizing, that means we are reducing our activities, we are reducing the activities of the organization, therefore there is a need to reduce the employees. So if we will retrench them, again there will be a negative image of an organization in the market. It is better to go for voluntary retirement scheme. Change in technology, when a technology changes, we require new employees who are technology savvy. So in that case, there can be either to make the employees trained, or we can remove the employees by giving them this particular scheme of voluntary retirement. At the time of recession also, we can go for voluntary retirement scheme, and takeover, merger, joint ventures. These are the common ways in which these are the common reasons for which voluntary retirement scheme takes place. Now, thank you very much, students. With this, end with the topic of separation.